So this will be the last question, and we'll begin with you, Ms. Keith. And following the question, you will, of course, have your time for your closing statements. Under what circumstances do you feel it's appropriate for the council to push decision-making to the voters via a ballot measure?
Well, I would hope that as a council member, what we would do is make decisions up here on the residents' behalf. And I hope that as a council member, I would be able to look at staff reports, talk to residents, and be able to make decisions. I think people in Menlo Park, we live here because it's a great community, and we have great services, and we want to keep that. And I think that you want to elect officials that will do the business of the city, so that you can do the things you want to do. And I think I would strive to have outreach on issues, listen to everybody, get input, help people come together on issues, and that we wouldn't need to be putting things on the ballot. It would not be my ideal choice to put things on the ballot. So I would prefer to listen, work with residents, and come up to some conclusions here and make the decisions that you elect us to make.
Thank you. Mr. Klein.
It's a funny one because if you were to ask me when I was first running, I'd say, no, absolutely not. Leaders got to make decisions, and it would have been easy and clear cut for me. And now that I've been up here and seen the way it operates, there's a lot of funny things that go on, and it requires a little bit more flexibility in your thought process, and you need to be willing to be able to react to those things. So in some cases, you'll sit up here and deliberate for months on a project, or for, it'll feel like months in one night, and you'll deliberate over it, and at the end you have to come to a vote, and you may have information in there or information from the folks who are sponsoring the project or against it that drive you to a decision to put it to a public vote. There are some areas where projects are large enough to have that kind of impact, or they're controversial enough to have that kind of impact. But I do think it's important to let the community know where you stand if you're going to do it ahead of time. So if you're going to pass something, which I think is perfectly fine, and cities do it, to say, hey, this is big enough where the community needs to have a say, I think it's only proper for that council to also take a stand and vote on it so that people know where the council was at the time. We did that on the Gateway project. It was unambiguous. I mean, it was played with out in the a little bit out there about not taking a stand, but we did vote on it and we supported it, and so it's out there on record. And I think in some cases you have to listen to the people who bring the project to the table, or listen to what the volume of feedback from the community, and try to make a critical decision on that. I think to have some kind of dogma on that, I think is just another clear case that you're approaching this with your mind made up. You need to have some sense of flexibility, but you got to make the decisions and then pass it on if you need to.
Thank you. Let's see, where are we? Mr. Bernstein.
Making a decision is only half of what needs to happen. You also need to have people committed to the outcome. I participated in the debate about the child care center a number of years ago. There was a plan for the city to rebuild a new building. I, along with Mickey Winkler and Lee DeBach, put together a plan whereby we would remodel the old police station into a child care center and save the residents somewhere between $3 and $5 million in doing so. The council would hear nothing of it. They went ahead, voted to build a new building. It was called the Taj Mahal in the newspapers. And they spent $750,000 on working drawings before a new council was elected, came in, threw the drawings away, as they should have, because we still managed to save $3 million. Had we voted on that, I think people would have been committed more to the outcome. I do applaud the City Council for putting the Gateway project on the ballot. As I think is obvious here, I am not a supporter of that project, but what I pledge to both Mr. Bohannon and the people of Menlo Park is that I will abide by whatever that vote shows. No more sabotage, no more delay, move forward and on to the next things we have to deal with. So I think what we're talking about is the battle between participatory democracy and representative democracy, and I think there's room for both. When you need the support of the entire community, when there's something that affects the entire community, why not let everybody weigh in on it? I can't decide what you want or need. I can listen to you, but I can't decide, and at some point, I would need a vote to confirm what I would be doing on your behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson.
Thank you very much. So I'm a pretty strong believer in a representative democracy. I think we get elected to come up here, do the work, do the homework, listen, talk to staff. When you're making decisions up here, you spend a lot of time really getting into the depths of an issue, spending time with staff, reading the staff reports, understanding all the pros and cons on really complicated issues, doing outreach to the key stakeholders. That's really what we do, most of it. It's not practical at all to think that voters on a regular basis would do that. And so the general rule for me is that these are our decisions. We got elected to make them, and that's what we should do. I made an exception to that rule this summer when I voted to put the Measure T on the ballot. As Mayor Klein mentioned, we did vote on it as a council. We did pass it with a 4-to-1 vote. But we also put it on the ballot. And the reason for me was a very practical one. Menlo Park has a long history of referending potentially contentious issues. And if this project had been referended by a citizen group, there was a very strong likelihood that the timing of that would not have made it, allowed it to be on the November ballot, which would have sent it back to a longer period of time. I was actually urged by the developer, Mr. Bohannon, to support putting on the ballot. And so again, for that practical reason, I do. I apologize to all of you who have to now endure all the campaigns on both sides and make your own decision. But be that as it may, we will get an up or down vote here in November.
Thank you. Mr. Ohtaki?
In general, I would certainly prefer that representative democracy, and every 4 years the accountability is through your vote of the city council members and what they have accomplished or not accomplished, rather than having to have voters vote on particular initiatives that should have been handled or could have been handled by the city council. I refer specifically, for example, to Measure L and the Pension Reform Initiative, which I believe is certainly something that the council should have and could have worked on, and in fact could have adopted, particularly when over 3,000 signatures were submitted, and yet has left it into the initiative process, and so it's going to be voted on. And of course I support that. Several of us do support Measure L. The two incumbents don't. And I certainly believe that's something that could have been avoided if the council had either earlier recognized the issue back in 2007 from the financial impact of the obligations that they were making, and secondly, they could have, once the signatures come in, they could have avoided the initiative process by adopting it at that time. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson.
At the risk of sounding dogmatic, Rich, sorry, I'd really have an issue with putting, especially planning decisions, on the ballot for some of the reasons that Heyward had mentioned. So again, it's a never say never kind of situation, but really this is, representative form of government. We do it a certain way. I really believe in that, and I expect to be held accountable. I'm not running for something 4 years from now or 8 years from now or whenever. I'm here just like I volunteered in all the other volunteer jobs I've taken to volunteer to help work and make the city better. So just as a philosophical belief, I don't think we should do the ballots like this. Of course, then you turn around and look at, I'm a supporter of Measure L, because I think we do need to push that further down the road, and take some fiscal control back, and give that control to voters. So, there's my dual personality again. But yeah, as far as the issues go, I really want to sit there and decide those up here. I want you people to know what I've decided, and hold me to account for that. Term limits, hey, this job gets a term limit every 4 years if you choose, and that's just kind of the way I see it.
Thank you.